Hey, so I was not expecting the patch to come nearly this quickly. When they didn't put a date or even a window on the reveal for what was coming in this patch, I figured it was going to be a ways off. I figured it was not going to be the next week. That much is for certain. Nonetheless, that's very cool because everything I saw in that reveal looked excellent. So, yeah, we're going to be looking over the patch notes here and see what is coming. I assume they're going to explain in more detail. So, let's see. Little refreshes of legacy content. The first to include little refreshes of legacy content. If the patches to follow are going to continue along these lines, that would be amazing. Because the deeps mechanic for the dwarfs sounds amazing, and it sounds like the sort of depth mechanic that many of the races in the game right now could use. This sort of mechanic of, let me adjust the webcam. It looks a little Dutch angle there. Nah, I've undutched it, I think. Hopefully. Maybe I've Dutched it further. I actually can't see my webcam perspective right now. I have to pull up a separate window, and I'm not going to do that at the moment. I would love to see mechanics like this carry on, specifically mechanics that make the process of settlement management different for the races. I appreciate the different campaign mechanics that reward the player for winning battles by giving them new legendary items or buffs for their armies. That's cool and all. But to me, a lot of what keeps a Total War campaign interesting going long into the game is the process of building up the settlements in ways that are interesting and allow you to experiment. And I said last time when I was reading over the blog that was a big part of what made Three Kingdoms excellent to me. And I really need to sit down and play Pharaoh, because Pharaoh seems like it would be quite similar in a lot of important ways. And I think that it's where Total War Warhammer is somewhat regressive, I guess, in a sense, comparative to the historical Total Wars that have come out in the same time frame, which have got progressively much more in-depth campaigns. And Total War Warhammer, I don't expect to have things like family, dynasty tree mechanics or anything like that. That'd be too much, and it wouldn't make sense for Total War Warhammer not trying to portray a certain time frame. You get the idea. Let me get to actually reading here. I've rambled on enough. So, bug fixes, quality of life, rework for the definitions of rollback builds on Steam. Oh, for people who want to go back to a previous update because there's still a campaign they haven't finished. Yeah, I can see where that'd be confusing. I've never bothered. For me, if I've got a campaign in the middle, going while the game updates, then I tend to just delete it and move on. But I have an easier time dumping campaigns than I think a lot of people do. At the same time, I've actually finished a few campaigns, so I've gotten deeper into campaigns than a lot of players have, so I guess I've got a balanced approach. I can do a little bit of everything. Okay, yep, we got the same, what that was advertised. The Deeps for Dwarfs, Chaos Cults for the Monogods, unusual locations for everybody, and an overhaul of the Ivory Road for Cathay. So, the Deeps, let's see. Oh, they're not going to reveal too much more. It's going to have to be that you actually get to see it in gameplay. Interesting. Okay, yeah, so looks like it's more or less what they were saying the other day. You need to construct a great gate, extend into the Underdeep, expand your settlements beyond original limits, brand new building tree, seal your hold, smelt your oath gold. Would that be smelt your oath gold? Does that imply you could convert oath gold into money? That'd be another interesting thing to do with oath gold. But it is costly. You need permission from the High King. And hang on just a second. Let's expand this window. You can see right up there we got a new resource icon right there. They made that in the space of a week? Huh. Anyways. There's a new resource there that seems to be, I don't know, High King's approval or something that you have to earn. How do you earn it? They never explained that, did they? Interesting. But we'll see that tomorrow, I suppose, when the update releases, because it did say tomorrow, right? Yes, tomorrow, August 20th. Good Lord, that. August 20th is going to be a full day for me. I've got all kinds of things signed up for that day. But, yeah, that is interesting. Anyways, doesn't look like we have any particularly big new information going on here. And it does look like it uses the same window that the Under Empire for Skaven and the Cults for the Monogods uses, where it's just a little button you can click at the bottom right of the settlement UI. Makes a lot of sense. And we can see the building tree here. I think we saw the building tree in full last time, but nonetheless, it is here. Those branches are fascinating. I'm curious to see what they do. Okay, cults. I assume we're not going to get much new information here. We may see a few more unusual locations, though, and that could be cute. So, cults, it goes over the same mechanics. Cults can be created by cultists. Doesn't spread through corruption. New unique campaign-only agent called the Cult Magus. Still don't know how we get those, huh? Okay. Building tree for them has been expanded. More than double the amount of building choices. Revamped buildings and effects. And now utilizes the Skaven Under Empire discoverability feature. Oh, interesting. The cultists do still retain their ability to do things like damage walls. It's just now they have the alternative established cult option. Interesting. That almost makes me wonder if they're going to go back with the Skaven Under Empire and allow the Skaven heroes, or at least the Warp Block engineers, to establish Under Empire settlements without, instead of what it is now, where you have to either attack the settlement with an army or spend that one specific unit you get from the Rite of Doom, I think, or expand the Under Empire through the Under Empire, which is expensive and untimely, shall I say. Interesting. Okay, unusual locations. Okay, so this is using the very same UI, excuse me. Okay, let's read the description first before we look at that picture. Warhammer world rich with lore. Provide the opportunity to stumble across 20 new unusual locations through the course of the campaign. Provide unique and interesting effects, sometimes with trade-offs, along with unique events, traits, and items. Lesser referenced places from the Warhammer world. Often linked to specific regions or sets of provinces and may come with additional restrictions. You can also remove them from your settlement if you want. You don't build them, they're just automatically there, and you can choose to raise them instead? Excuse me. So, interesting. An unusual site has been discovered near one of your settlements. You have the option to remove it at a cost. So it will just appear. What turn? This is on turn 1. So I assume that not every settlement will have an unusual location, but every settlement when you take it will have a chance to have an unusual location? Interesting. There's definitely going to be some expansion by modders there. Curious to see that one in gameplay. And the Ivory Road update. Yes, that was not explained last time, so let's see. Cathay can now dispatch multiple caravans. Zhao Ming can dispatch 2 from the start of the campaign. And everyone gets an additional caravan from a technology. Caravans gain a unit depending on which location they complete their journey at. Arriving at Erengrad gives Akshina. Interesting. And you can now go to Nuln, Berekvar, and Gizaru, each adding a unique item and a unit, as well as a small user experience improvements and bug fixes. Okay, so that's going to make caravans quite a bit stronger if they pick up a unit every time they reach a destination. That's also going to make it so that you don't automatically always go for the choices that give more units to the caravan, though, because you'll probably be hitting that 20-unit cap sooner rather than later now. Interesting. That's going to make caravans a lot stronger, yes. Gonna make some weird armies after a long time in the campaign, that much is for certain. And improve the tooltip for when you hover over the resource icon on the settlement label, making it function similar to the landmark tooltip added previously. Okay, I wonder how much has really changed there, because that might affect the OVN Lost World mod. Hopefully not much. We'll see, I suppose. We'll see tomorrow. Campaign AI. Oh, we're getting changes to campaign AI. Okay. They've incorporated feedback to improve the overall challenge during the mid to late turns of the campaign. Campaign AI recruitment system should be more robust and effective. Streamline the qualities that the AI uses to determine whether or not they want a unit. And tried to improve the progression in the mid to late game of a campaign, so that they will focus more on upgrading the main major settlement buildings so they get access to higher tier units sooner rather than going for other buildings. And they should prioritize special resource buildings. Huh. So then they compare units, armies at turn 50, which, that's not a horrible army, honestly. I mean, it's not very interesting to play against because it's just a lot of melee infantry. But that's not a terrible army. And then compare it to the new result, which is a good bit more variety in these bottom two armies, though that top one is still pretty melee infantry heavy. Also, the strong lack of heroes in the army, which I find odd. I've never seen the campaign AI go without hero spam. The campaign AI loves to spam heroes. And also, difficulty buffs applied to AI have been increased by approximately 20% in accordance with their faction potential. Well, I don't play on the higher difficulty, so that won't affect me. But anyways, yeah. Oh, they go into more detail. Okay, that's where I should hold my commentary until I read the rest of it. Unit quality values had a high number of inconsistencies, and they wanted to make it more robust and consistent. If available and when the budget permits it, the AI will more consistently try to recruit more powerful units, and will try to increase the variety of units recruited. Both of those are good. I personally use a unit cap mod, a Drunk Flamingo's unit cap mod, though it's probably going to be renamed now, as I believe Drunk Flamingo has just retired from modding. But I use a unit cap mod, as the AI, the later you get into the campaign, the more the AI tends to doom stack. I don't like doom stacking. There are a lot of people for whom doom stacking is the way you play Total War Warhammer. More power to you. It's not the way I do it, and I don't like it. So I use a unit cap mod that generally will somewhat curb some of the spammier habits of the AI, but that's only really for the late game. Generally speaking, the cruddier units in a roster are not capped in most unit cap mods. So I would be seeing lots of skinks and lots of Sauruses on your given Lizardmen army. Not quite as many skinks as you'd want, though. But yeah, that's good. The AI sometimes took considerable amount of time to upgrade their main settlement building chains. I honestly never paid that much attention. Though if by turn 40 Altdorf was still only tier 2, that's pretty bad. And they have prioritized major settlement chain. And they should prioritize getting it up to tier 5 as soon as possible. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good priority to have, generally. That's generally the priority that most players are going to have. The AI tends to ignore special resources. Now they should prioritize those. So overall, those are all good changes. They'll make the AI a little bit less, like... I need to hydrate there. The AI generally does get less competent the longer the game goes on. At least enemy AI, because the game noticeably gets easier as it goes on, which I don't worry about quite as much as other people. I tend to associate 4X games and grand strategy games with a certain degree of snowballing. To me, that's part of the experience, and not always a negative one, sometimes a very positive one. I'd rather the game end definitively once I've gone through the struggles, but at the same time, I understand people who want a more difficult late game, and for understandable reasons, because it's when in the late game when you get access to the crazy big units, the crazy big armies, and a lot of them. So this should be a really good change. This should make the late game a bit more interesting. So, good on them. Then they go into more detail with the Lizardmen. Honestly, this is not a... I'm actually going to skip over a lot of this. Except I'm seeing a few interesting things. Like Nakai should try and go for croc scores more. Tic-Tac-Toe should go for flying units more often. That's good. I like themed armies. Excuse me. I like themed armies quite a lot. I tend to go for themed armies when I play. And the AI naturally is not going to go for them most of the time. As part of what I don't like about Doom stacking is that it goes against themed armies so much. So I like that. But other than that, a lot of this stuff is going to be more noteworthy for people who found that the AI was a bit too difficult in the late game, which is, to be honest, something I didn't really notice. I tend to pay more attention to keeping my own ducks in a row, honestly. But I'm not super great at Total War. So, I think that's going to be the difference here, and that's going to be a very cool feature for them. A pair of new units arrived to the Greenskins faction. Okay, hold on a moment. Okay, feedback indicated insufficient challenge and higher difficulties. So, slight boost to the AI across all difficulty levels. So, 20% for faction potential. So, XP gains, construction costs, recruitment costs, upkeep, growth, and replenishment rate. And they also get better global recruitment. Yeah, this is probably all going to make all this be overall quite good for people who play on very hard and legendary. I don't, so I'm not going to notice this change, but it's good for them. Okay, now okay, we got goblins with swords and orcs with spears. Okay. These are changes. Okay, goblins with swords and shield. Okay, so when Total War Warhammer 1 came around, it was pretty visible that the Greenskins, they were being a bit more subtle with the army differences at points. The vampire counts had the obvious difference from the other races that they didn't have ranged units. The dwarves had the obvious difference that they didn't have cavalry. But Greenskins and Empire... Greenskins were better in melee, but other than that, it could be sometimes more of a fine-tuned... or not fine-tuned, but a finer difference. And one thing that was noticeable was that Greenskins, up to this point, had no units that had charge defense. The only spearman unit they had was the goblins. And they didn't have charge defense, they didn't have bonus versus large. Now, apparently, that's going to be more of a thing. So, goblins with swords will be now taking up the role we traditionally associate with goblins, where they'll be the generalist goblin unit, while goblin spears will get bonus versus large, charge defense, and probably worse melee attack and better melee defense. Interesting. Okay, yeah, this is a fundamental change. This is going to be interesting. Being on the modding Discord, which, if anyone's watching this who is also on the Total War Warhammer modding Discord, Lost to Insanity, who makes the Wheeze special mods, has had a lot of difficulty with odd aspects of the Greenskins design in Total War Warhammer. And this has been one of the more noticeably odd things about Greenskins, their design in Total War Warhammer. And this is going to be interesting for the implications for the rest of for the modding community as well. But in particular, what does this mean for the upcoming DLC? That they felt that ahead of time they should go ahead and add 2 free units to the Greenskins. Because for all intents and purposes, the goblins with swords and shields are not going to be a new unit gameplay-wise. They're going to be a new unit aesthetically. And even then, it's not that much of an aesthetic difference. They just have knives now. Who cares? The gameplay change there, the new unit for gameplay purposes, is actually the unit that aesthetically we've already had all this time of the goblins with spears. And the orc boys with spears are going to, of course, be a big difference. They're going to be a much stronger anti-large. Interesting. This calls to the question, will we get black orcs and orc boy biggins with different armament options? And it's going to be... If night goblins want anti-large, then they're going to have to recruit regular goblins. Wild. That's pretty crazy. I was not expecting that at all. Battle map tree cluster update. Certain old and new battle maps have odd-looking clusters of trees that neither look good nor served any tactical purpose in battles. Oh, is this the tree acne? It's the tree acne. I see. Yes, I follow Zerkovich on YouTube. Very quality Total War YouTuber. I highly recommend him. A lot of good tutorials, lots of fun lessons on how to build an army for battles in a way that's not particularly... that if you're not a cheese guy, if you're a cheese guy, there's plenty of YouTubers that do that. But if you're not a cheese guy, Zerkovich is really good for teaching how to play Total War real good. And most of what I know, I learned from him. His videos, so strong recommend. But he pointed out that a lot of the maps that came with Total War Warhammer 3 had what he called tree acne, where the maps, when seen from above, the trees did not develop in the patterns of natural forests, but rather when you look at it from above, it's like the map is the face of a teenage boy, and the trees are spotty like acne. So he called it tree acne, and in my head, that's just stuck. And it hasn't bothered me as much as it has many people, but it is nonetheless something quite noticeable that has a tendency to lead to less interesting battle maps. So I'm glad to see they're changing that. That's curious to see them go back and change currently existing or previously existing battle maps, though. Though it does make it look a bit more natural, and it does add some tactical changes there. Interesting. And I assume they're not going to show all the maps, are they? Yeah, no, they're not going to show all the maps. But, like, right here, yeah, this looks a bit awkward. That's some awkward tree acne. And then, yeah, a little more smooth. Little bit more smooth. Yeah, looks like a good change across the board. And it looks like we've got... oh, the Bordello landing map is back after they fixed the issues. Okay. New Shadows of Change background. Oh, interesting, because the Shadows of Change main menu art is kind of derpy. Or was kind of derpy, because it was just the 3 Legendary Lords. And it stuck out really badly, because otherwise the main menu background options were more aesthetic landscape shots and things. So it stuck out like a sore thumb. Warhammer 1 had a lot of very similarly doofy-looking main menu backgrounds that you can actually see in-game now that they've made them available for everyone. And I'm glad they've added this as an alternative option. I'll probably use this one for a while. That's quite cool. And now we get to the bug fixes. Now, bug fixes I tend to just glide right over. I notice bugs in Total War Warhammer. Everyone does, but I generally do not notice as many bugs as get fixed in a given update. I usually don't find out a big bug has been fixed until I see someone else remark on it. Alright, yeah, rollback builds. Huge thank you to everyone, as well as those who've reported their bugs since the release of Thrones of Decay. Running into any issues after updating to 5.2. They sat down to record another video with the dev team. They'll be sharing it next month, okay? Interesting. So is the DLC going to be October then? If they're just going to have the devs talk again in September. Well, we already saw some of the units, right? Didn't we? It almost feels like a millennia ago. I don't know, my life's been busy lately. Anyways, yeah. And here we go. Mod warning. Mods may have issues with a new update. If you are encountering performance or stability issues following a release, it's recommended you disable any mods you're running. That's odd that they slapped that on there at the end. I don't think they've ever slapped that on at the end of articles before. If people don't know that, then that would be pretty strange. But yeah, mods historically tend to have issues with Total War updates. And they're going to generally probably have some issues with this one. As there's already existing a mod that does something very, very similar to the Dwarf Deeps mechanic. I bet someone has probably already got a Cathay dual caravan, 2 caravan, or even 3 caravan mod. There are definitely already mods with goblins, goblin swordsmen, and orc spearmen, though I doubt that's going to matter that much. But there's going to be mods that have problems here. Interesting that there's not really any battle unit bounce changes here, though I assume those will come with the next DLC. I'm not complaining. I don't think I've heard that to my understanding, the battle balance is more or less supposed to be in a solid state right now, but I don't pay that much attention to the online multiplayer. Actually, for the past few months, I haven't been paying any attention. Last time I really paid any attention, to my understanding, Slaanesh and the vampire counts were quite overpowered, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I could be wrong. I want to say both Slaanesh and Vampire counts have been nerfed since then. So, unit balance-wise, I think we are fine. So I think it's more than fair that some of the dev focus was changed. And this looks like a very exciting update still. I am curious, the unusual locations, interesting that they're just built automatically. I guess if they weren't built automatically and you had to pay to build them, that would have created new economic issues for campaigns, wouldn't it? Because Tomb Kings, for instance, don't get the ability to throw around money to the degree that, say, the Empire does, or especially the Dwarfs or High Elves. So this does make more sense from that side of the balance. Though it's going to be more of a pain for the Tomb Kings if they get an unusual location they don't want to keep and they need to get rid of it, but that 1,000 gold's going to hurt more for the Tomb Kings than it does for the other races. Does the unusual location mechanic apply to the Beastmen? Or does it apply to Warriors of Chaos Shrines? Or for Wood Elf Outposts? Interesting. If it doesn't, I'm sure there'll be a mod for it, but... I mean, they've already said that the unusual locations are going to be a way that they sneak in the minor factions that don't get as much mention. And we've already seen, like, you're going to get a Tylean port. Makes me wonder if, like, any settlements in the area of Stirland, Overland, Sylvania could have a chance to have, like, a halfling farm unusual location that would give, like, crazy growth or something. I don't know. I'm also, I mean, of course, you know, this is all now somewhat old information that I've had some time to digest. And whereas the Orc and Goblins units are new information, and as a result, I'm still a little bit reeling there. I'm getting hung up on them. That is a curious change to the Greenskins' balance. I mean, it makes sense because that's a very subtle balance decision comparative to the races that have come since. And it's not like that really barred people from building defensive greenskin armies, right? You could always play a defensive greenskin army. This has just made it a bit more viable. But that is curious. Well, if they add the Squig artillery unit, that would be even better for a defensive greenskins army. Whatever. Either which way. I better go ahead and end this video now before it goes too long. And I will say, I'm very curious to see this stuff when the rubber hits the road tomorrow. Because this is a lot of very cool features that nonetheless have not been detailed too thoroughly. They're kind of just leaving it to be in the player's hands to discover the mechanics. Unusual. For Creative Assembly, I mean. They usually elaborate quite a bit. So, yeah, gonna be interesting tomorrow. And I'll be enjoying it. I suppose I should go ahead and say that. And other than that, I don't know how to end the video, so I'll just end it. Later.